Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make this cute little soup dumpling. Before we start with the tutorial, please make sure that you have all the right materials. So first you'll be needing some yarn. The one that I'm using is by Abbreviations and it's the premium one in the size 4 medium and the color is just white. Next you'll be needing a crochet hook. The one I'm using is 5 millimeters, a pair of scissors, some stuffing, safety eyes. The ones I'm using is 6 millimeters, a stitch marker. If you don't have a stitch marker, you can just use a regular small safety pin like I am here, a needle, any regular sewing needle will do, and some black thread for the smile and some pink thread for the blush. To start this pattern, we're first going to make a magic circle, and to do this, you're going to take your yarn and have it at the 2 fingers mark. You're going to secure that with your thumb, and then you're going to wrap it around your fingers and then make an X. Then as you wrap it back over, you want to make 2 parallel lines like so. And I'm just going to secure that with my 2 other fingers. So now the front of your fingers, you should have an X, and the back of your fingers, you should have 2 parallel lines. Now you're going to take your hook. Make sure that your actual hook part is facing down. You're going to go under the first strand of yarn, and then you're going to hook the second strand. And you're going to gently pull and then make a loop like so. So making a little twist. And now you have 1 loop on your hook. Now you want to make sure your hook is facing up because we're going to go under this strand of yarn over here. So we're going to go under and we're going to hook that, and then we're going to bring this strand of yarn into the loop that we just made. So the way I like to do it is kind of twisting it down so it's hooked like this and then scooping it through the loop like that. Now if you let go of your hand, your left one, you should be left with a little circle, and this is called the magic circle. And you'll see that you have a little tail over here. If you pull on it, the circle will get smaller, and if you pull on the actual circle, the circle will get bigger. Now we're going to make our first single crochet, and to do this we're going to take our hook, we're going to bring it into the magic circle, and then this strand of yarn in the back, we're going to hook it and bring it forward into the magic circle, like so. So now you have 2 loops on your hook. So to do that again, I'm going to take my hook, place it into the magic circle, and then this strand of yarn in the back, I'm just going to bring it forward. And now you have 2 loops on your hook. So now you're just going to yarn over, so literally just putting the yarn over your hook, and you're going to bring this strand of yarn into both loops like so. And that is your first single crochet. So we're going to do this 5 more times to get a total of 6 single crochets into the magic circle. So now that you have 6 single crochets, a good way to confirm that you actually do have 6 single crochets is to look at the braids that are on the outer edge. So if you count each braid, you should have 6 because each braid is a stitch, which is a single crochet. So if I count from the bottom here for mine, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 braids. So now I know for sure that I have 6 single crochets in the magic circle. I'm going to loosen my hook, and then I'm going to pull on my little tail here. So what this will do is this will close up your magic circle. So as you can see, the center is now gathered together and it's closed up, but on the edges you can still see your 6 braids. And you want to make sure that your disc looks like this, because if your braids are kind of twisted, it'll make things a bit more difficult going forward. So you can always adjust and make sure that your braids are neatly around your magic circle. Now as you can see, although this is a nice disc, this part still kind of looks open and not super round. So we're going to do a slip stitch to close that up and make this disc nice and rounded. So to do a slip stitch, we're going to look at our first braid. So my first braid is right here. So you're going to find that and you're going to take your hook and put your hook under both sides of the braid. So there's one side that's here and one side that's in the back. Right here, we're going to put the hook under both. If it's really tight, you might have to kind of wiggle your hook through, or you can pull on each side of the braid a little bit to loosen it up. So now you're under the braid and you're going to yarn over and then bring this piece of yarn into all the loops. So just like so. Now if you take a look at your disc again, it's a nice even circle. And that is round 1. For round 2, we're going to be making 6 increase stitches. So before we get started, you're going to first take your stitch marker and place it in the last braid that you just made. This just helps to keep track, because as we work the next round, we know that once we reach this marked stitch, this is the last stitch of the round that we're going to be working in. And this just helps us in case we lose count as we crochet. So to do an increase stitch, we're going to first find our next braid, which is this one, and we're going to do 2 single crochets but into the same stitch. So what this means is, first let's make our single crochet. So we're going to go under the braid. You're going to bring the yarn forward. So now there's 2 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over and then pull it through both loops. So that is a single crochet. If you remember from the beginning, to do an increase, you're going to go into that same hole. So underneath that same braid that you just made your single crochet, you're going to go into the same hole under the same braid, and you're going to do another single crochet. So bringing the yarn forward, yarn over, and then into both loops. So now, even though we only worked into 1 braid, if you look at the side here, you have 2 braids up top because you made 2 single crochets into 1 stitch, and that is an increase. So we're going to do 5 more increases to get a total of 6 increases until we reach back to the stitch marker. Once you have all your increases done, if you count around your stitches, you should have a total of 12. So if I count from here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So now I know I'm on the right track. I'm going to take my stitch marker and place it in the last stitch or braid that we just made, and we're ready for round 3. For round 3, we're going to be working in sets, with the set being 1 single crochet and then an increase. So we're going to be alternating between the 2 types of stitches. So to demonstrate the first one, we're going to find our next braid. We're going to make a single crochet into the first one. So that's a single crochet. And then when we go on to the next braid, we're going to be making an increase. So we're going to be doing a single crochet and then another single crochet into this same stitch. And then back into the same stitch, we're going to make another single crochet. So now we have 1 single crochet and then an increase, and that counts as 1 set. So we want to make a total of 6 sets, and since we already just made 1, we're going to make 5 more all around until we reach back to our stitch marker. Okay, now that I'm done with round 3, I'm going to place my stitch marker back in, and if we count around, we should have a total of 18 stitches now. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. Now let's move on to round 4. For round 4, we're going to be working in sets again, but for this one, it's going to be 2 single crochets and then an increase. So just like the previous round, we're going to be doing our first single crochet in the next stitch. Then in the next braid, we're going to be doing another single crochet. So just 2 normal single crochets. And on the third stitch, we're going to be making an increase. So doing 1 single crochet and going back into the same stitch for another single crochet. And that is our first set. So if you look here, I have 2 braids to start. These 2 are my single crochets, and then I have another 2 for my increase. So that is 1 set. We're going to be doing this for a total of 6 sets again. So I'll be doing 5 more until we reach back to the stitch marker. Now I'm going to place my stitch marker back in, and just to confirm I made the right amount of stitches, there should be 24. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Great. Now let's move on to round 5. So rounds 5 to 7 is the exact same. I call these repeat rounds because for every round you're pretty much doing the exact same thing. So rounds 5, 6, and 7 you're going to be doing single crochets all around for 24 stitches. So nothing crazy here, no sets, no increases, just straight single crochets all around. And after I make my first single crochet, I'm just going into the next stitch and making another single crochet, and then moving into the next stitch, doing another single crochet. And I'm going to do that all around until I reach back to my stitch marker. Okay, now that we have the 5th round done, I'm going to place my stitch marker back in. And at this point, you might start to see that your project is starting to curve up a little bit. This is completely fine because now we're starting to make the circular shape of the dumpling. You just want to make sure that you're crocheting the right way around. So the tail, it should be on the inside of this little bowl that you're making, and you should always be working this way. So you should be working in a way that the outside of your project is the outside of what you're seeing. So you never want to be working this way because then the outside of your project is what's inside, if that makes any sense. But basically, you just want to make sure that if you take a look here, this looks very pebbly, whereas the other side, it looks more like nice, smooth stitches. So you just want to make sure that you have your project the right way around. So now we're going to do round 6, and it's the exact same thing, so I'm not going to explain since it's the exact same thing as the previous round. So I'm just going to make single crochets all around until I reach back to my stitch marker. Alright, now we have round 7 finished. I'm going to place my stitch marker back in, or round 6, did I say 7? I don't remember. Now we're going to do our last repeat round, which is the same thing, so single crochets all around. Alright, now that we're done with the repeat rounds, I'm going to once again put my stitch marker back in, and I'm just going to count around to make sure that we have 24 stitches, just to double check that we didn't miss any stitches or we had made too many. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Okay, perfect. So now we are ready for the next step. Before we continue with the next round, we're going to be putting in our eyes and stuffing a bit of the project so far. So I'm going to take my safety eyes, and you can pretty much put this anywhere, but you just want to put it on the under the row that you just made, so right under the braids. Depending on how close together you want your eyes to be, you can place and adjust accordingly. I usually have it 2 stitches apart, but yeah, you can definitely play around with it. So I'm going to keep mine at this distance, and then I'm going to be putting my backings in. Now you have your little eyes. I'm going to take a little bit of stuffing, just a little bit, and putting it in. Or actually, I guess we can stuff after the next round. It's okay. Never mind. So let's just go ahead and start with round 8. So for round 8, we're going to once again be working in sets. Instead of increases this time, we're going to be making decreases. So one set is going to be 1 single crochet and then a decrease. And we're going to do that 8 times. So first we're going to go into our first stitch for our single crochet. Now we're going to be making our first decrease, and we're going to be doing an invisible decrease so everything looks nice and smooth. And to do this, we're going to be working into 2 stitches. But to do an invisible decrease, instead of going under both braids like this, like how we've been working up until this point, we're only going to go in the front loop. So you're going to actually point your hook into the center of the braid. So you see how when you look at the braid, there's a loop in the front and then a side in the back. We're only going to be working through the front loops. So pretty much from the bottom of the braid into the center. And we're going to be working into 2 stitches at once. So you're going to go again and go through the front loop of the next stitch. So now on your hook you should have 3 loops. Now you're going to yarn over, but you're going to bring this strand of yarn only into the front 2 loops. So you're pretty much just going to ignore this loop for now. You're going to bring it into the first 2 loops, and now you have 2 loops on your hook. So you're going to yarn over and then bring it through the rest, like so. And that is a decrease. So we're going to do 7 more sets of this until we get 8 sets in total. So again, we're going to go into the next braid. We're going to make our regular single crochet, and then we're going to work into the front loop of the next stitch, and then once again into the front loop of the next stitch. So now we have 3 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over and only bring it into the first 2 loops, like so. So now you have 2 loops left. You're going to yarn over and then bring it all together. And that is your second set. So I'm going to keep doing this until I reach back to my stitch marker. I'm going to place the stitch marker back in, and we are now done with the 8th round of this pattern. If you feel like your eyes were a bit too narrow or too wide apart when you placed them on earlier, this is where you want to make changes. So previously my eyes were here and here, and now that I'm looking at it, it looked a bit too narrow, so I just moved them apart a little bit. So if you do want to make adjustments to your eyes, now would be the perfect time to do so before we finish off the last round. So for our last round, we're going to be doing decreases all around. So we're going to go into the 2 front loops of the first 2 stitches, bring it through the first 2 loops on our hook, yarn over, and then bring it all together. So that is our first decrease. We're going to do a total of 8 decreases. So since we just made 1, we're going to do 7 more. So now, if you count around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you should have a total of 8 stitches. And since we just finished our last round of the pattern, you're no longer going to be needing your stitch marker. So I'm just going to close it up and put it away. Now I'm going to take my hook out and have your stuffing ready, and you're just going to start stuffing your little dumpling. If you like your crochet projects on the firmer side, put more stuffing in, and if you like it a little more squishy, then you can put less stuffing in. I personally like my projects on the firmer side, so I like to put a lot of stuffing in, but this part is definitely just up to your own personal preferences. So now I'm happy with how firm my project is. I'm going to cut this yarn. So usually I would say around this much is a good length. If you're unsure, I would say always cut more than you think you need. But basically what we're using this strand to do is we're going to be sewing the top part to make this little notch or little top part. I don't know what this is called, but like, you know, when you like pinch the dumplings? Yeah, so this is what we're going to be working on next. So I'm going to thread my yarn through, and then I'm going to take my needle. There's specific needles for crocheting and knitting, but I do not have that, so I'm just using a regular sewing needle, and it has never done me wrong. So don't feel the need to go out and buy a special yarn or crochet needle if you don't have one. A sewing needle works just as fine. Okay, so I'm going to loop that through my needle, and I like to keep a little bit hanging off over here. Now, what you're going to do is, a little tip is to push your stuffing down a little bit so that the top part, this edge, there's no stuffing spilling out. It just makes sewing a lot easier. Okay, so what we're going to do is, first I'm going to loop it in so that my yarn is on the inside. We're going to be sewing from here. So usually when you're trying to close up a crochet project, you would be sewing up here, because then it makes like a nice flat circle, I would say. But since we're making a little dumpling here and we want that little notch or little bun at the top, we're going to be taking it one step down. So we're actually going to be sewing around this side of the, or this level of the crochet project. Then if we put it together, it'll have that little notch at the front. So to do this, I'm going to aim my needle at the bottom side, and then I'm going to pull it through and then go into the next side and then point it to the other side. So parallel through and then pull it tight. So now you can start to slowly see it forming. I'm going to go into the next one, point it to the other side, and then pull. So I'm just going to keep slowly pointing it towards the other side of the crochet project. And then the more you do this, the more you'll start to see your little, I still don't know what this is called, your little, I'm just gonna call it the little notch. I don't know if it's actually a notch. I don't think so, but yeah. I'm going to point it onto the other side and then pull. And at this point you can kind of see which sides need a little bit of help. So this looks really good to me, but here I want to pull this part in a little bit. So that's where I'm going to focus on. I'm going to put my needle through here and then point it to the other side. Like so. Make sure that it's always underneath the notch. Then I'm going to pull it. And you're just going to slowly work through this, looking at where needs more work, what looks good, what needs to be pulled in a little bit. Oh. Hello, this is Editing Maggie talking. Apologies for this skill issue as you watch me put the yarn back in the needle that fell out, but this is a reminder that now is the perfect time to subscribe to me if you haven't. Thank you! Okay, once you're happy with how the top of your crochet project looks, you're going to point your needle to the bottom of your project and pull it through. And you want to pull gently for this part so it doesn't pull the notch down. And I'm going to do that again. What this does is it just helps secure the yarn. I'm going to do that one last time for good measure. And then you are ready to cut this off. And now we have our little dumpling crochet. Now we're going to start making the finishing touches of this dumpling. So we're going to be placing the blush and the smile. So I'm going to start with the blush first. You want to get that through your needle. And the way you want to do this is you want to start from the side over here and then point it to where you want your blush to start. I usually like to have it in between the eyes and then a little on the edge. So I'm going to point my needle around here because that is where I want the blush to go. So I'm going to, and you want to pull gently until only a little bit of your yarn is peeking through, like so. And then you're going to point your needle where you want the blush to start. So I like mine at the halfway point of the eyes. So that's where I'm going to place it. And then I'm going to point my needle on the opposite side, so where I want the other side of the blush to start, which is also in the middle of the eyes right here. Now I'm going to gently pull, and you want to really be focusing on this side as you pull to make sure that it's a good length, it's at the right position you want it to be. So I'm pretty happy with that, and if you want it less tight you can always pull on it a little bit. If you want it tighter you can just pull on this strand a little bit. So I like the way that looks, so I'm going to go ahead and start with this side. So I'm going to have my blush end around here, and then once you have that end you're going to once again aim to the bottom of the dumpling, and this will help secure your yarn. And again, you want to be focusing on this side this time to make sure you're not pulling too much and making sure it's in the correct location that you want it to be. So that looks good. Actually, I'll make it a little tighter. Yes, okay, that looks good to me. So now I'm just going to gently secure my yarn. So pulling it in this direction a little bit, and then maybe bringing it back here a little bit. And then you're good to cut. To make a little smile, what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing. We're going to start from the side, and then we're going to point it at where we want the smile to end. So usually I like to put mine right in between the eyes. So that is where I'm going to point my needle, probably around here, these 2 points. And you want to gently pull until you only see a little bit of your thread pointing through. And then you're going to go into the next side of where you want your smile to end on the other side. You're going to point it there, and then you're going to point your needle right in between your smile. So let's say I want my smile to be like this. Once I have my needle in here, I'm going to point it at the halfway point and where you want your smile to, like the bottom edge. So if you want your smile all the way down here, point it in the middle down here. If you want it up here, I would point it in between here and here. So this point right here. So we're going to go in to the other side of the smile and then point it at the middle bottom of where you want your smile to end. And you're going to pull gently, like so. You don't want to pull it all the way tight. You want there to still be some sort of gap here, because that is what will make that smiley face. Because if you pull it all the way down, you'll just have a straight face, like so. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to put our needle through this little loop over here, and then we're going to gently pull, and then as you pull your strand down, this is what will push the top yarn down to make that little smile. So remember, if you put your needle down here, you would push it all the way down here. So you just want to tighten it up until you get it to a point where you're happy with. So I like this little smile over here. Once you're happy with that, you're going to place your needle right at the edge, and then once again point it to the bottom of your crochet project. So now I'm going to secure the yarn, just pulling that through and then through again. You want to pull gently, and then we are ready to cut the yarn. And there you have it. Your little dumpling is finished. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. If you enjoyed this video, definitely give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more tutorials like this, do be sure to subscribe. Other than that, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.